So a whole bunch of missiles, like over 300, including cruise missiles, launched at Israel this past week. And what did that do to the markets and to crude oil? Stay tuned. Pete and I have the answer. Bang!
I got to tell you, I'm living the life that Jon lives every day of the year, and I've done it for the last 2 weeks. And I'm going to say this. I can't take it. He loves going on the road. Thank God I don't, because I love sitting here in my chair at my house. But it's been fun. I won't say it wasn't fun. It was great with Grant Cardone the week before down in Miami. It was great last week with the great people from the Money Show in Miami. I don't know what Miami's got going on, but they got something going on, Jon, because they are attracting everything. And that place is packed. I mean, that might be the most packed in city in all of North America.
Yeah, it is, Pete. And Brickell, which Pete hadn't been to in a long time, if ever. It's like some city in Asia or something, Pete. It's 50, 70-story towers. They've got a 100-story tower going up. Or is it 110? I
think it's 100. I'm pretty positive.
Residential. The guy took us out to dinner.
Jon, let me tell you something.
Pete and I are going to buy one.
I'm still dizzy as hell. They put us in those goggles. I've never in my life worn those crazy goggles that give you the virtual reality. But I'll tell you what, it's fascinating beyond words, because even though you know where you are, that thing makes you feel like you're about to step off of a building, step into a swimming pool, whatever it is. And I'll tell you, if you are anything like me, that dizziness is not all that pleasant. So I'm not sure that was good for me, but it was damn cool. It was unbelievably cool to see how that worked.
Yeah, and it's how he shows his buildings, folks. He built the 11 condos that are part of the Miami skyline going up here. He's building this 100-story Waldorf Astoria, our friend Kevin. We'll tell you more about it. I'll also, Pete, maybe tomorrow I'll tell you about Jelly Roll and a chance encounter with the big man down there at the Masters. But yeah, I'm tired of being on the road as much as I am, Pete. But there's no rest for the wicked. Isn't that what they say, Jared? Jared would know.
Hey,
let's talk about macro, Pete, because this is the Rebel's Edge, and we do cover macro, but we don't spend the whole show on it. There's a lot of shows you can waste your time on that do. We don't do that. So I'm going to say, Pete, macro minute retail sales come in better than expected. But is that a good thing, Pete, if the retail sales that are up are gasoline, which people are always happy to pay more for gas. They're also always happy to pay more for food. But what aren't they buying? Virtually everything else that's retail sales related, Pete. So if it's gasoline and food, I'm thinking that's not so good.
Well, I'm right there with you. And, we always have that stat where they say, well, if you strip out gas and food, it's like, okay, but it's a big part of the lifestyle that most people have to lead. And it's a big chunk of the money that a lot of folks have to dole out for that gas, for that food. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. It's not just eggs. It's all kinds of different things that when you go to a grocery store or to a restaurant or whatever. So I'm right there with you, Jon. I think that is, from the macro standpoint, that number today, I think it was very telling, but telling in the opposite direction of most, probably.
Yeah. Well, just in case you were wondering, folks, he is Pete Najarian, because some people can't tell us apart. I heard that a lot at the Masters. And every once in a while, Pete, Flutie knew it was me, but Josh Allen thought it was you.
I hope you told him about me doing his game.
I did. I said, that's my brother Pete, and he did cover your game at Wyoming. And he immediately called back to the bosses at ESPN and said, whoa, this kid's the best I've seen. And Josh appreciated that, Pete. He's a really good guy, and boy, is he big.
He's big. He's a tight end playing quarterback. He's a big man.
Very well said, because he's not big like an offensive lineman. He's just big. He's got big, strong legs, small waist, big shoulders and chest, Pete. You know, it's no wonder he can throw the ball 70, 80, 90 yards down the field. I mean, the guy's a beast.
Yeah.
But anyway, more on that later. Tomorrow or the next day, between the jelly roll stuff, maybe we can jelly roll in some Josh and Kevin Plank too, Pete.
Oh, yeah, Under Armour.
And be sure to say hi to your brother when you see him. I said, I will, Kev, I will. All right. So let's talk about fantastic futures.
Fantastic futures.
That was the fantastic future man working his way across. Today, I'm going to say it's copper, Pete. It's up 16% year to date. And yet another thing that is hugely inflationary. A stock can be up 16%. But if a basic material that people use every day in construction, in computers, automobiles, you name it, that's a cost that's got to be borne by somebody. And I'm thinking it's, again, not on the good side of the ledger.
No, you're right. And I think that's well pointed out, because it is important. We talk about commodities all the time. It's not just gold and silver, folks. It's copper, it's coffee. I mean, you could go down the line, and it's all of that. How about, I'll give you one, uranium. No one ever talks about uranium. Look at what those prices have done over the last whatever period of time you want. It's unbelievable. I'm just going to say volatility right now, John, and here's why. The first quarter of the year, 12 to about 15 on the VIX. Where have we been since we've started the second quarter? It's only 2 weeks deep, but call it 15 to 19. Now, 19 was the high just last week, but 15 to 19. Where are we today? The last I looked, we were about 1770. So we are right smack dab in the middle of that. And I think volatility, we talk about the VIX a lot. This is why we talk about it. We are seeing it start to gap up a little bit closer to 20 all the time.
Well, that's not a good thing necessarily, but it is smart that some people are taking the opportunity to hedge while they can, not when they have to. I'm sure our friend 50 Cent, Pete, not the rapper, but the buyer of VIX calls, is probably kind of licking his chops or her chops. We don't know if it's a man or woman that's been buying these, but they call him 50 Cent because whoever it is buys roughly the 50 cent options and buys hundreds of thousands at a time.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, let's talk about Wire, W-I-R-E. It's Encore Wire. As the name implies, they're probably something to do with electricity, and they're probably bearing a lot of those higher costs of copper, Pete. Well, they're going to be taken out, supposedly, for about $290 a share, all cash deal. So that in and of itself is a pretty big statement, an all cash deal. And it represents a premium of about 20% to the 30-day average. In other words, people had been kind of pricing in as we got closer and closer to a deal here, the idea that there might be a deal. And that's why they look back over the 30 days and see not just how much has it moved Friday to Monday, but how much has it moved over the last 30.
Yeah, and you were just talking about copper for your fantastic futures. What do these guys do? Copper and aluminum. I mean, it's right there in that category. It's amazing because, John, the takeout number is 290. That's a huge number, $4.2 billion, right? Where did it get up to today? Got up to 295. Now, a lot of people would say, what in the hell is going on? Why did it go to 295? I'll give you one maybe possibility, John. The shorts in here are somewhere between 20 and 28%. Number one, I'm going to say, ouch, because these guys are getting hit and hit hard. But as they're chasing this thing to the upside, they just continually chased is what it seems to me, because otherwise, why did it penetrate that much further past 290? Is there a possibility the thing could go even a higher bid? None of us know the answer to that. But certainly these shorts wanted to cover some of that, John. And I think that's why we hit 295 for the highs on a 290 bid.
Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe, Pete, the firms, by the way, folks, when you have these shorts and you have a deal, People that have lent their shares demand those shares back so they can submit for the cash bid. And that's one of the things that, no matter how strong your intestinal fortitude, I'll use that phrase, Pete, no matter how strongly you feel about this being a short, you can't hold it if you don't have a borrow. And I think that borrow is becoming more and more expensive given now that they've got this deal on the table. All right, let's talk for a sec about Goldman Sachs, Pete, because earnings were strong. Their profits were up 28%. That's probably giving Solomon some breathing room. And you notice how he's kind of dropped DJ from his nickname because people were thinking, well, maybe you care more about DJing at Coachella than you do about running this company. Well, ever since he's dropped that moniker, Pete, or at least people have stopped using it, the stock has been doing much better. And it's 403. It's up. It was up 1%, 2%. Now it's up almost 4% on the day. So some strong earnings out of Goldman Sachs here.
Not just strong, pretty magnificent earnings, John. And it makes a lot of sense because of where Goldman Sachs actually fits in the financial world. Because, of course, they get lumped in with the banks. Well, let's be honest. Are they really a bank? Probably not. But they're lumped into there. They certainly are a financial and obviously investment banking. That's what you're looking at a lot of when you're looking at somebody like Goldman Sachs. Well, that's also where they've crushed it this past quarter, John, with all the deals that have been going on that you talk about almost every day on this show. We talk about, well, there's a buyout. We just got done talking about that buyout with Wire. There's buyouts happening far more than we did in 2023. There's all kinds of different types of deals that we didn't see as much of in 2023. That's why we're seeing a stock like Goldman Sachs pressing on near at least all-time highs. I think the high that I saw today, John, was 412. But it tells a lot about what these earnings really looked like. Investment banking wasn't the only thing, but in my mind, that's what I wanted to look at. But when you look at these numbers, profits up 28%, revenue up 16%, and earnings up 32%, I would say Solomon's got the focus back and that Goldman Sachs is not only back, but they're the big bad boys again. And I think that this year, 2024, looks like it's very promising for them.
It's one of these stocks to keep your eye on, folks, when you do get all the markets working, because they are. Commodity markets working for Goldman and their clients. Equities, bonds, all of these things are moving. And, what are they? A prime broker. They also trade. So I got to think that a lot of the trading at Goldman has been very good this year, Pete. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about medical properties. This is a REIT. It's up 17% because they're going to be selling 5 hospitals out in Utah. That is an interesting move because obviously it takes down a lot of the properties that they've been paying those dividends because, again, 95% of a REIT's profits have to be paid out to complete strangers, shareholders. And MPW shares are moving to the upside, and it's been a mover all day long. It's up almost 20% right now. It's fighting to get over 5. It got over and couldn't hold it, but if it can sustain over 5, Pete, watch out.
Then the buyers start stepping in again. I agree with you, John. I mean, that's something that a lot of people don't understand. There's a mechanics that goes along with that on what you can and can't do. I'm not going to get into that, but I will say, to your point, up about 21%. It took an entire 30 minutes of the trading day to match a normal trading day's total volume. Gives you a little bit of an idea of what was going on when people saw what was happening with MPW. The interesting part to me is this, John. You know what was going on? I would say that the folks that were short, and I'm talking about 35 to 40% of the folks in here have a short position in this stock. I think that might have added to this big move to the upside. I'm not sure that everything else added up to the fact that it should be up 20, 21%, but certainly it looks like it is because I think those shorts are getting pretty nervous. To your point, at some point when you get to 5 and you start getting above 5, things do change, and there's a green light that happens out there for folks that are interested buyers. By the way, end of April, not that far away, April 25th, somewhere in that category, 25th, 29th, they're going to have their earnings as well. So we're going to be hearing from that. But I'll tell you, I look at these shorts. I'm so curious on why they're so short this name, John, going deep into this. But nonetheless, when you look at something that's got kind of a dividend yield of something north of 20%, they are putting out a hell of a lot of money to a lot of folks, and somebody's been fighting against it. But I think that fight's been lost.
Well, it feels like that, Pete. It does feel like that. Let's talk about NMRA. That's N like Nashville, M like Mary, RA. It's Neumora Therapeutics. The FDA put a clinical hold on a trial. It was already in human trials. Why did they put that hold on? Oh, you're not going to like this. Because that trial was also being administered, the schizophrenia treatment was being tested on rabbits, Pete, and the rabbits began experiencing convulsions. I'm not making fun of that. I know a lot of you are probably very much against animal testing, but if those animal tests start seeing some real negative side effects, even though they haven't shown up in humans yet, Pete, they halt the tests. Yep. They halt the phase 1 trial, and they might have to go back to the drawing board. That's why this stock is down hard today.
Yeah, last I looked, it was about 17%, John. When you look at the 52-week range, and it's 9 all the way up to 21. Last I looked, it was somewhere closer to 11. Is it justified? Probably. I mean, anytime you start your clinical trials, and there's a whole process here, but once you start those clinical trials, you're thinking you're on your way, right? You're going to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. You're going in front of and you get approval. Well, these guys got stopped right out of the gate. And it was, as John was just talking about, not with the human testing, but with rabbits. And so that was the issue. That's why this thing got pulled. They basically said, look, we got to get out for now, even though the humans are okay. There's something about these convulsions. We've got to stop this test. Well, the problem is, when you've only got 8 stocks and you've only got one that's actually in phase 3, you need as many as you can. You need that whole pipeline to start moving to the upside and getting a lot closer to being something that goes into the world. Well, that's a big problem for this company right now, and that's why it's getting hammered. And you got to remember, there's only so much cash out there. There's always that cash burn effect that you've got to deal with when you're a biotech like this, and that's an issue as well. So for a variety of reasons right now, this is on hold, and this would be a no-touch for me for quite some time, John.
It has come down massively, Pete. It was a $20 stock, I think, in February, and now it's trading below 12. Yeah. So certainly not a good thing. All right. We thought we'd share this with you from the Frozen Four.
Love it.
Even though we have Masters stuff, and we'll talk about the Masters, but this from the Frozen Four. For those not familiar, Frozen Four is hockey. And just like the Final Four in basketball, the Frozen Four are the 4 teams that survive and get to the finals. And this is a fantastic save by a goalie that you guys are going to see here. Roll the tape.
In front.
That announcer's a god, I tell you.
Matt Davis is out of his mind.
Matt Davis is a total stud. That was an amazing, amazing job in the net, John. I mean, just to do that, I'll tell you, I would say that 99 out of 100 times that shot is going to be a goal because it was so quick getting over to the guy who's standing right on the edge of the goalie, and it's just ready to go. He snaps that thing up there, and the guy made an unbelievable play. Congratulations to Denver, by the way. I mean, all year long, John, it was Boston College, it was Boston University, of course, Minnesota and Michigan and some of those schools fighting their way around. But Denver, what a unbelievable end to the season and a great victory for those guys. All right, we're going to go over to golf because John was just there. But, John, the part that I bet you don't really know about is before we got into the Masters, where you were over the last weekend or whatever. God, I'm jealous of that, by the way. It is beautiful beyond words. And I mean, absolutely unreal to watch. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched pieces of it here and there, but man, absolutely beautiful. But what if I told you this? The ratings so far this year in Phoenix, they were down 35%. At the Arnold Palmer, they were down 30%. At the Players Championship, they're down 15%. Now, there's a combination of reasons why. I think that there's the possibility of, well, they've gotten together with LIV. people aren't happy about that, even though nothing has happened in the last 10 months, John, since they got together. Nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. But there are people that are angry about that. There are also people that are angry because golf is a very expensive sport, and we all know that. So when you get into a time like we are right now, and you've got a lot of folks that are kind of struggling through because inflation is really hurting a lot of people, there's more and more people that aren't probably getting on the course. But that being said, you go to this one, and all of a sudden the numbers absolutely flipped. And I don't know what it is about the Masters, John, that really stands out so much more, but it's beautiful. It's unbelievable. Scotty Scheffler was unreal. You got a chance to see all these guys. There's a kid from Cal there, John Morikawa, who was battling him for that top spot for quite a while, and then he started to drop back a little bit. But you know, when you see Rory McIlroy at +3, you see John Rahm at 5, and you see Tiger Woods at a +11, and then he shot an 82. You and I damn near, no, I'm just kidding. We don't shoot it. Put a 1 in front of it. But you know, then all of a sudden everybody's saying, hey, maybe Tiger ought to step away from the sport. I don't know where in the world that comes as part of the conversation. No. He had a bad day. He still has issues with his leg, his ankle and everything. So I don't know that that's something I would go to. But why do you suppose it really took the Masters to get these guys back on track? Do you any thoughts about that other than it's the most gorgeous damn place on the planet?
It is pretty gorgeous. It's immaculately groomed. They're very protective, Pete. They had drones overhead the whole time. They track your badges to make sure, because some of those people pay tens of thousands of dollars to be there, not for a single day, but usually for an event like that, where maybe they get to golf at one of the courses near Augusta. You know, there's an Augusta Country Club, not the Nationals, not Augusta National, but there's an Augusta Country Club too, Pete. And I didn't know that. But a lot of guys go over there and get to play around and end up paying $20,000 to play around, share out, you know, one of the great homes that they rent out for that week or longer around the Masters and so forth. I would say that Thursday, was it Thursday? Let me see. No, Friday. Friday, Pete, was really, really tough because it was dark. And before they brought them in, before they finished the last guys on the course, and it was windy as heck. So Saturday, the same sort of thing. It was a beautiful day, but the wind died. So Thursday's the day that you saw all those scores jump way up, because no matter how good you were, you know, you could be 7 or 8 under, and, you know, just in a couple holes, you can drop to only being 3 under. And that's what was happening. And then some of them fought their way back. And as you say, Scotty Scheffler held on and won it kind of going away. Nobody was really closing in on him. But I'd say, Pete, it's a pushback against LIV with the PGA. Some of the people that watch at home probably just said, heck with it, I'm not watching that or whatever. But the Masters is the Masters. And they also, Pete, don't have commercials per se. By their own election, they have basically just taken cutaways, you know, for a few, you know, brief cutaways, like 30 seconds maybe was the longest commercial break. So you're seeing golf, and you're not struggling through all of those commercials. I think that's one of the many reasons, that and that gorgeous course and the history, I think, are why so many people tune in for the Masters. I'll be surprised if they tune in for as many of the other matches this year, Pete, even the big one, you know, the U.S. Open.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. And I think it does represent something to do with the economy itself as well. Just, you know, dollars, right? I mean, discretional dollars that people have and all the rest of that. How about this one, John? Tom Brady. Now, this, I think, was pretty dang interesting. I don't know if you saw it. I don't know how many people saw this, but Tom Brady actually, in an interview, so this wasn't like, well, he might have said, you know, here was the words he said. This is exactly what he said. I'm not opposed to joining a team, for a team may need a quarterback late in the season. Tom Brady's going to come back, John. I mean, if think about this. Just imagine this. The New York Jets get on some kind of a roll, right? And Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately, gets hurt late in the season. Tom Brady might walk right out and take his headphones off from Fox and walk down onto the field, throw on a Jets uniform, start playing quarterback. I mean, I know that's being silly, but he was very serious and was not joking when he said it. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see as we get into the NFL season, because all we talk about is which 5 quarterbacks and where they're going to go in the draft, right? I mean, that is everybody's conversation and everything else. But this is actually more interesting because it's talking about the end of the season. And as you get closer and closer to the playoffs, if you happen to need somebody, Tom said he might be available. What do you think of this? Because one of the things he said, John, he goes, hey, look, I keep myself in phenomenal shape. And I know that to be true because I've read his book and I see what he looks like. TB12, he talks about diet. He talks about how he lives, how he runs, how he lifts, how he does everything. And I guarantee you this, he's in the same shape he's always been, which is very good now in the last decade or so. And I'll tell you, I think he might be right about the ability for him to throw the ball. I don't think Tom, just because 2 years now that he's thrown it, I'll bet you he could still rifle that ball downfield pretty well. But what do you think about this just even being floated out there? Is it crazy?
Well, they would have said the same thing, Pete, and they did, about Roger Clemens. How many times did Roger Clemens come back for the Yankees and put on the uniform in the playoffs only? I mean, he came back for the playoffs, didn't come back with like 2 months to go and work himself into shape or something. He says, hey, I'm always in shape. I can throw this damn rock. And yes, he can. So the Yankees would bring him back and pay him a ton of money, Pete, to do that. Obviously, to your point, if down the stretch, some player went down in a key situation and Tom said, I'm available, who wouldn't want Tom Brady to be out there for him? I mean, you know, there are a lot of situations you and I could name where you've got quarterbacks that, you know, under the right circumstances, they could take their team all the way to the playoffs, but some sort of hit in the final weeks takes the guy out, or he's not as strong. Because that's what it would take. You got to have the guy taken out. Otherwise, you're not going to bring in Tom Brady just for a playoff run. But an injury, yep, absolutely. That could happen, Pete. I don't think it will, but it could. And if ever there's a guy that could play, George Blanda. I was thinking of the other quarterback for the Raiders, Pete. I think Blanda played till he was 46, or maybe even 47. So yeah, could Tom put on the uniform one more time? Absolutely. And we'd all love to see it.
It's just fascinating to hear him say it out of his own mouth and then get to kind of kick it around. And it'll probably stop getting kicked around pretty quickly until we get to December. Come December, John, we might be sitting here having this conversation. So we might have to roll this thing back, because I'm with you. I think if called and under the right circumstances, if it's who he wouldn't mind being a part of, I think Tom would come back. I think he misses it.
Yeah, I'm sure he does, because we all do to some extent. Yeah. And obviously, in his case, doesn't need the money, doesn't need the fame. But would he love one more ring, Pete, just to make it 7 or whatever? Well, thanks for joining us, folks. Remember, the Rebel's Edge is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So we look forward to having you join us again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you then.